What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Scratch Golf Performance, and in today's video I'm going over 6 exercises that I believe only expert golfers are able to do. Not because of the weight or the work capacity or the difficulty, but the tools required to execute the movement that I think only pro and expert golfers have. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So what do I mean by expert golfer? Obviously I'm talking about the pros. I'm talking about people who dedicate a lot of time and a lot of their life to golf practice, golf training, whatever you want to think about golf, these guys are doing it. And that's why I think these golfers are able to execute these exercises, because they've just put in a lot more time, work, and effort than the normal, average person. And if you haven't watched any professional golfers train, they have a lot of mobility, they have a lot of flexibility, they have a lot of range of motion, and that's due to the specific demands of the golf swing. So I'm gonna go over all 6 movements with you guys, and I want you to try these and see how far you get. And if you can't do the movements, leave a comment down below and I'll do a video or maybe a short on how to better improve these 6 movements. So first on the list of the expert golf exercises is going to be a Z press. The reason this one's so difficult is because it requires mobility in the hamstrings, mobility in the hips, mobility in the back, and mobility in the shoulders. So all a Z press is keeping your legs as straight as you can, getting an upright back, upright shoulders, and I'm pressing these dumbbells over my head with full extension. If you're tightening up just by watching this movement, you know you ain't gonna be able to do it. But this is a really good movement for overall mobility, overall shoulder strength, and you can progressively overload this movement to build muscle and get stronger. That's the easy version, legs straight. If you want a little bit more difficult version, you can start widening your legs until you're not able to keep your legs straight and that back upright in order to press up and over your head. So the Z press is movement number 1 that I think only expert golfers are able to do. So the next exercise that I only think expert golfers can do is an overhead squat. The more I think about it, the more I don't even think half of the PGA Tour can do this movement correctly, because not a lot of people can do a correct normal squat, much less an overhead squat. A lot of times what I'm seeing in squat limitations is ankle mobility and maybe some hip mobility, but the overhead squat also involves shoulder mobility. So if you don't have good shoulder mobility, you're not gonna be able to do this movement correctly. When I see people do overhead squats, a couple of things I'll see is a squat and the hinge like this, and that is due to poor ankle mobility, or I'll see this, all right, the bar being way too far back behind their body. That means they're lacking hip mobility. But a good overhead squat is hands widened on the bar, where the bar is in line with my belt buckle. And a good overhead squat requires the bar to be perfectly in line with my spine. So even though it's over my head, I'm not literally putting it over my head. I want to put it over my shoulders. So it's going to be slightly behind my head. And then I want to have what's called a good A-frame. So if I had somebody push down on the middle of this bar, I would have a good solid base in my shoulders. And then that overhead squat, I've got to keep that bar to the sky directly over my spine, and then I'm dropping straight down, knees out, toes out, coming right back up. One way to improve this movement is doing an overhead squat with no bar, doing it up against a wall, or using these TRX straps. That way you get a little bit more play in the hand position, but I'm still trying to hold my hands in a good A-frame, keep those hands in line with the shoulders, and I'm squatting down, coming back up. I use that variation a lot with my clients, and it seems to help improve their shoulder mobility, hip mobility, and ankle mobility. So that's movement number 2 that I think expert golfers can only do. Now the third movement that I think only expert golfers can do is what's called the pin lay row. It's just a row that is starting from the ground, you're pulling it to your chest, and then you're setting it back on the ground, meaning you've got some rest in between reps. That allows you to go a little bit heavier and allows you to focus on a little bit better form. But the reason this one's so difficult is it requires a lot of hamstring flexibility, hip flexibility, and lower back flexibility. If you're starting to see a theme around why expert golfers are the only ones to do it, then you're picking up on what I'm putting down. A lot of mobility required for these movements to do them correctly and progressively overload them. But with this pin lay row, I've got to get my hips all the way back into a hinged position as far as I can. The reason I want to hinge instead of bend is because I can't do this pin lay row with my knees in the way. So I've got to get my knees out of the way, and then I've got to grab this bar with a good grip and keep my back locked in so I'm not lifting with my spine, and then pulling this bar to my chest and right back down. If you go heavy, you might get a little bit of lift in your shoulders, but I really don't want to lift with my back. You can see how this one would be difficult if you don't have a lot of hamstring flexibility, but that's another really good progressively overloaded movement for the back, as well as strengthening the hips and really just the whole posterior chain. But you've got to have mobile hamstrings, you've got to have loose hips in order to do this movement. Now I'm going over the fourth movement that I think only expert golfers can do, and that is an eccentric step down. Working legs unilateral this time, meaning working each leg individually from each other. But the reason that I think this eccentric step down is reserved for expert golfers is because you're having to control your body through space on one leg and be able to get all the way down to the ground while keeping your whole entire foot on the box, which is why I took my shoes off for this one so you can see. So I'm hanging off the edge of the box right here on one leg. I'm trying to control my body through space going down, but I've got to keep my shoulders up and I've got to allow my hips to move back while keeping this foot on the ground. So I like to hold my hands up for balance. I'm going super slow, super slow, super slow, shifting my hips back and then allowing myself to gracefully fall down. Again, keeping that whole entire foot on the box. One thing that I'll see, especially at my gym, is a lot of people, they'll go down to about right there and they don't have the hip mobility. And so they'll go on their toe like that and control themselves down. You've got to have the ability to shift your weight back and stay balanced while doing this movement. If you don't have a lot of ankle mobility or dorsiflexion, you're not going to be able to even start the movement and get that knee over the toe and then contrastly scoot the hips back and then fall down. One thing you really want to do as well is keep this knee in line with your toe. You don't want to valgus that knee in. You want to really control with your quad and your hip and your glute all the way down, nice and slow. So this is expert golf move number 5. This is a single leg RDL T-spine rotation, but we're going to be up against the wall right here. So biggest thing is I'm using my inside leg and inside hand. Both of those are going to be on the wall. I'm going to do a single leg RDL, keeping my back in line, keeping these things in contact with the wall, and then I'm trying to rotate up and touch my hand to the wall. One reason that I'm only including experts in this movement is number 1, you have to have good hip stability, you have to have good hamstring flexibility, and you have to have good core mobility. Also a little shoulder mobility as well. This is a very complex movement that really works on thoracic spine rotation and taking you through a very golf specific motion right here. This whole movement is golf specific. I'm hinged over like a golf swing. I've got to be stable and mobile in the hips like a golf swing. I have to be able to turn my back to the target, so getting thoracic rotation like a golf swing. And this is a really good movement to practice mobility specific to golf, but a lot of amateur golfers and a lot of maybe even semi-pro golfers are not able to execute that movement. So I want you to try this one, see if you're an expert, but if not, maybe we can, improve that for you. And the last movement that I think only expert golfers are going to be able to execute is a wall angel. This is strictly shoulder mobility, chest mobility, external rotation. I'm trying to sit on a seat, make sure my butt and my lower back is up against the wall, and I'm trying to keep as much of my arms and hands and fingers on the wall as I can. I'm trying to raise up, keeping everything in contact with the wall, touching my thumbs together, and then bringing it right back down as low as I can. Even harder would be doing this movement from that Z press position. This one is going to be really difficult, especially for my men or anybody who sit at a desk. I mean, I've seen people who can't even get their hands to the wall because their shoulders are so tight. So to start, just stand on it. So to start, do a standing wall angel. That one might help you progress further on, or even start with just your fingertips. And if you can't even touch your thumbs together, just raise your hands out to the side. But we've got to start opening up that chest and really working on that external rotation. And with these expert golfers working so much on mobility and flexibility, they should be able to do that one no problem. And that's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If there's any movements that you think I missed or you have seen pro golfers do, maybe on their Instagrams or social medias, leave a comment and I will try and get to those movements and maybe make another video. If you think these movements are too easy and you're able to do them, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your feedback on what you think about these movements. Otherwise, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel to see more, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.